Alright, and we're rolling. All good. Alright, yep. So, remember when we were talking about this kind of level design? So we built this whole environment. Now, just notice, yours might be slightly different. You see how I have the effects in the scene view as well as the game view? You see that? Like when I click, where do we have our FPS controller? And if I turn off the post-processing, you see on your end, if you do this, it might just do it down for the game view, because that's a script that's on the camera, all the post stuff. But the new version of Unity with the new post-processing stack, it also does it in the scene view.
Oh, okay.
So it's much easier for you to work with it because you can see exactly what it looks like with all the shader stuff, right? You see that, right?
Yep.
So on yours, it might not be doing that right now. And the way to get to it to do that is just to get the newest one, Unity 5.61. Right now you're all probably running 5.6. So yeah, that's just one of the little things they added, so I upgraded so I could have this feature. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. They had it in the earlier versions, but then they kind of got rid of it, then they put it back. I think like this is what makes, working in Unity really look almost like Unreal. I mean, you see this, like, usually that's why Unreal looks better, because when you're working with it, it all looks lit and it's got this glow and the anti-aliasing and all that, which in Unity, it never really did that. Like, it always looked like this, It only did that on the final game, but now they're letting you tweak those settings and work with it from in the scene view, so it's super useful. But yeah, so today what we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you some novel concepts. So what we're doing is we're gonna create a shooting game. This is gonna be very basic. It's gonna just use gaze to shoot, basically.
Oh,
so no, we're gonna avoid clicking for anything other than moving. So let me see if I can find a marker here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna introduce you to a few new concepts. First off, so for a shooting game, right? What do we need? So we need a player. Oh, that's a nice marker. Very fresh. Right? Yeah, I know. So we need our player, which is like our camera, and this would ideally be VR. So we're going to be developing it for. Then what we have already, so we have our level, our environment. So yeah, this is. And then what we also need is we need some enemies. Now, this is where things get interesting. So for enemies, I am going to teach you some basic AI. Very basic, very simple. Nothing's going to be more than a few lines of code.
Okay.
Unity has a really great built-in feature called nav mesh pathfinding. So the entire level that we created earlier, there's a tool in Unity where it can, for example, if we have like a maze of sorts, and if our player is here, and our enemies are here. So regular code, if you just did by direction, the enemy would only know to follow like this. But since this would be like a barrier here, what we're actually going to use is we're going to use pathfinding, and then this will know to turn a corner. So it'll be able to avoid obstacles. And I'll show you how easy it is to set up, just like how we were doing in Unity, and then basically get it ready for these AIs to be able to navigate through these environments. So we're doing very basic here. We have just, we kind of have it like this, and the AIs are going to be here, and maybe they're going to start all over the place, but they're going to try to cross this bridge and then get to the other side. Now, what we might do for fun, and this is optional if you all want, but I'm just keeping this simple. Later, you can make this more of a maze. Make it more of a challenge, more of a level. But the concept will be here. So you will have the asset of the AI that will attack your player, and they'll just, what we're gonna go for is just a bunch up a few of them here, and get them to just follow you here. But in essence, you'll see how how they navigate around this only through the walkable area, and then you'll be able to actually create your own, walls and stuff, in any way you want, like, if you're doing something like that or whatever. So that's totally up to you and what assets you'd like to use later on for that. But yeah, so we're just gonna set up like the very basics and do that. Then the other thing that is a novel concept that I'm going to teach you today is something called ray casting. So ray casting, that's kind of what this is almost. But so what we're going to do is our VR camera is, our player, when he looks in a certain direction, let's say there's a bad guy right here, So this needs to basically, when this is in view, when this is in center, it basically will shoot on update something called a ray. And the ray is a physics thing. So the ray goes until it hits a collider, basically. Okay. And then it can return a value of what it hit, for example. So that's the way that you would do a shooting mechanic. Because you're not actually going to instantiate an object and push it like a bullet. This shooting almost happens instantaneously for figure of speech, like for a game, for example. So what happens is when the cursor kind of hovers over, it's always just going to keep checking if there's something in the center view, and if there is, then it'll say something like, kill that enemy, like shoot him. It'll play a shoot sound effect, and then we'll do the animation of dead on the person. Okay. Yeah, and then other than that, and then I'll make sure we have everything exported for cardboard. And basically what we're going to make it work like is the touch, when you're touching the screen, is what's actually going to move you around in the direction that you're looking. Whereas you just have to look at an enemy and you shoot them. And it's very comfortable in VR when you're just looking around and then you hold to walk in that direction. So that's like the simplest way to navigate like a mobile VR, for example. So what we're actually going to start with here is, so we got our first person character here. Now what I actually want you to do is I want you to grab, you see where your Google VR folder is? I want you to open that Google VR folder, and in the prefabs you should see the GVR viewer main. Everyone see that? So Google VR folder and then prefabs. Yeah, so just pull that into your scene, and then you'll see
the whole thing.
Just the prefab. It's the GVR viewer. Just pull it into the scene somewhere, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to File, Build Settings, over here, and then you just go to File, Build Settings.
Wait, sorry. How do I?
Yeah, so for me and you, we're switching to Android, you're switching to iOS. So just tag it right here, switch platform.
Okay.
Might take a sec.
Run Xcode as released. Run Xcode as released.
What? Yeah, that's fine.
Build and run, you said?
No, so switch platform. So click on Android and switch platform, and then what it will do, it'll re-import stuff for Android. You might as well let it just do this right now.
Yep.
Usually you do this right off the bat. That was my mistake. We didn't do it. But basically, just so you know, if you're building for something, all the assets that you import, they probably have to be re-imported again if you switch platforms, because the way it works is different platforms like Android and iOS. They have different texture compressions. They have just a completely different way of managing assets. Okay. And Unity basically keeps all that in check and does it for you, the conversions. Okay. So that's why there's like the maybe like slightly lengthy importing process when you do that. Okay. But in the meantime, yeah.
So if I wanted to try this on my iPhone at home, I'd switch platforms to iOS, and then I can export it to
an Xcode project. And then you could take that Xcode project and put it on your Mac.
Okay.
And if you just have, yeah, so you'll see how we'll do it with her. Try to get it built. So in the meantime, while this is importing, what we can actually do is, I don't believe we chose an enemy, right? We haven't. So let's do that right now, right? So let's go on Mixamo, and pick out our character and our animations that we're gonna use. Okay, so you just go to Mixamo, log in with your Adobe account, and then go to Store. Now, y'all can pick whichever character you want as your enemy, but we're gonna pick the same animations. So just kind of go for it. I'm gonna pick, let's see here.
You need a website.
What's this guy? Yeah, he looks pretty enemy-like. So I'm gonna go with this guy. Now y'all can choose whichever one you like. So once you have your character, let me know when that's ready, and then click Find Animations here, and then we're gonna start picking out our animations that we need. Alright, so the first animation that we need is an idle. So if you just search idle, so you always need an idle for any kind of AI or NPC, even for your player character sometimes. And this is like the default state. So we don't want the default state to be frozen. We want the default state to be an animation, maybe just kind of like a slide like this. So those are usually called idle. So if you just search idle, you can pick an idle animation that you like. And once you're ready with that one, you just add to pack. And then we'll go to the next one. So we got idle. Then what we're going to need is we're going to need something like walk. So if your animations sometimes aren't in place, you could do some of these. You can click in place. So we want to work with in place animations, especially when you're doing characters that you're controlling in code. Always want the animations to be in place. There's a little check mark here. You don't want it to walk off center like that, because that's really hard to control.
Can I see walk off center?
There it is. He walks off center. Whereas in place, he just walks like that.
Okay.
Now you can pick, I don't know, this one looks more ominous, I think. Yeah. So see, some of them, they go off center. So it's important that you check in place. You have to make sure your walking animations are in place.
Yeah.
So this one looks pretty great, actually. Because I'm going for kind of the zombie one. There's this one too. Whichever one you want, just add to pack. You can also tweak these settings here. You can change the speed of the animation. You can do the posture, so I can make them like tall or like Igor-like, so I don't know. It's got some of these animations have parameters. You can tweak them. But yeah, I'm gonna add to pack. So we have a walking, we have an idle. Whenever you have that ready, the next one that I want you to look up is fall or die or something like that. So let's see.
Can we use the code from like the ragdoll thing?
We could, but we're not gonna do it in this instance because I just want to show you like the animation way to do it. So I don't know, something like this one looks fine, like sweep fall. Just make sure that he starts standing and falls down. That's the important part. Falling back death. This one's not bad either. Yep, that's a good one. So I'm gonna add impact. The last one we need is an attack animation. So just search for attack. So something like zombie attack is perfect for me. Something like that. Or does, yeah, that looks scary. So this animation will play when he's near you, and when he's doing this, this will decrease your health, basically. So you want to avoid this as the player. Once you see this happening, we're gonna have to prompt the player like that's like danger, like he's killing you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he can be idle, he can walk towards you, he can attack, and he can die. And that's the basics for what you need for a simple form of AI. Mine finished importing over here. Yours might take a few more minutes. That's fine. So yeah, when you're done with this, click Add to My Assets, and then click View Download. And then you should get a window like this. Everything should be in there. Now, don't click Queue Download yet. This is a bug in Mixamo. So once you're in this window, once you have it for Queue Download, you have to click in the animations, these in place. You have to make sure they're in place. So each one that you clicked, that if you have the walking, make sure you click that animation and make sure you click in place. There, because sometimes it doesn't save that check mark. I don't know why it does that.
Okay.
But just so you know.
Did for me. It's just on walking ones, right?
Yeah, just on the walking one.
Okay.
So yeah, whenever you have that ready, then you can queue download, and then up here, make sure you do FBX for Unity, and you can do 60 frames a second if you want it to look smooth. And then you just do queue download, and let it do its thing. All right. So we're gonna download this. Cool. So let me know when everyone's got their character. And then once you have that download, same as usual, just extract the files. Boom, boom, boom. And pull them into Unity. If it says like something like this, a material using a texture as a normal map, it says fix now, just do fix now. What that basically means is the normal map texture, it's a normal map texture, but it just needs to be marked as a normal map texture. And Unity detects that, and it'll just, if you do fix now, it does it for you automatically. Yeah. So where did I put my
Oh,
guy?
it didn't zip it. It's just, oh yeah.
Yeah, so just to keep this clean, if you haven't, just grab whatever's our materials here, textures and materials, and just put them in your materials folder, just to keep clean this up a little bit. We're gonna also make a new folder for sounds, so just make a folder and call it sounds. And we currently should have only one sound right now, and that's the cheering one from the goalie thing. So we'll just grab that sound and put it in the sounds folder. This is very important. You can see this can get really cluttered really fast when you have a lot of files.
Yeah.
So just get used to doing that. Put the still importing?
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll wait a little bit. Yeah, materials go into materials folders, and all the characters, you should grab them and put them in all the characters in their animations. Grab them and put them in the characters folder. You also want to grab, you'll notice each character makes its own folder, usually called character.fbm. You see that? Like this paladin guy that I had, or this zombie that I just downloaded. That's for the materials that come with it. Every time you import like a character, like from Mixamo, it will automatically make a folder from that character with all its textures. So that's what this folder is. Usually it'll look something like, name of the character .fbm. So you want to take those as well. So those and all these blue ones. So all these characters, these are all should be models. And you want to take, including the folders of the characters, you want to put that in the characters folder. Oh, it's not letting me because I think I have this. So if it doesn't let you, it might be because you have a duplicate of the character. So I actually have a duplicate here. So I'm just going to make another folder in there and put the duplicate in there, and then it'll let me. It doesn't let you, like, if it's the same name file, you can't put it like in the same folder because it just, yeah.
In my build settings, it says because you're not a member of this project, this build will not access Unity services.
That's fine. I think you might have checked on collab up here, maybe by accident. Yeah, so that's what that means. If you want to turn that off, there should be some settings up here to turn it off, I think. But it'll still work, no problem.
So it did. It sort of ran its course, but now it's just back on the build menu. Is that
Yeah.
just close it?
Yeah, now it should be good. As long as it just says Android here, you should be all good.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm cool now.
Yeah, so let's just clean up our project a little bit. So yeah, any sound files, put them in a sound folder. Any materials in a materials folder. And same goes for our characters in the characters folder. So did you make a sounds folder?
It's
Still importing? How much do you got left?
still.
Oh, well, just cancel it, because you can still keep working on it. Is it letting you cancel it? Sometimes it does that. If it doesn't, just give it wait like 30 seconds and then try to force quit it if it doesn't let you. So what I'm actually gonna do. So do you have did you download the Android build as well, or does this tell you to open the downloads there?
I just clicked this.
Oh, I mean, did you ever download when you installed Unity? I'm just wondering if you had it. I think it should do it. Yeah, it'll do it fast. Just give it another minute or two. It will do it.
I just clicked the cancel thing.
Oh, so it's re-importing the things I already did. Okay, let me just check here. Yeah, you did. It's okay. Well, the only thing that you won't see here is when you do virtual reality supported, it won't have the cardboard. But what you can do is this. So it should still have the VR view, just fine. Yeah, so you can still work it the same. The only thing I would change here is just if I get rid of this first person controller for now. Yeah, so Alt to look around. Yep. So when you do convert this later, it should be just easy, ready to build for iOS. Yeah, but we'll just leave this on for now. Yeah, so you should be good. we're actually gonna do is for you when we're testing iOS, like we'll just make an empty project, you know, and put something very simple in it, just like a plane, and put that on iOS, just so you can build at least. And then on your own time you could re-import the whole project and do it the same way. But as long as you can build one and your computer's configured for it, then you should be goody on the rest of it.
So what do we do?
So just you should be now in the same place here. So after having cleaned this up a little bit here, one other thing that's also good to do, because these scripts can get pretty messy as well. You can create another folder for scripts, and you can put all your scripts in there.
So I noticed that when you drag it over,
It does a little importing.
if you drag it to the folder, does it copy it?
No,
Drag it
what-
to the name,
No, what it does is it just has to fix all of the links everywhere. So Unity, even though you moved the location of the file, still knows the script, attachments and all that, so it preserves that.
Okay.
That's why you get the little importing dialog. It's actually super useful. There's really no other ID that I've worked. I don't know. Unreal probably has it too, but in regular programming, if you move the file, you would have to go in and rename the locations to everything, and everything would break. But in Unity, it uses these meta tags, so it always keeps track of the file itself, not the location of the file or whatever. It knows what the file is and what it's attached to.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, it is.
So Unreal doesn't have any of that. This is all.
I'm sure it has something similar, but yeah, it's a little bit different with Unreal. So now what we're gonna do is you don't have to follow this step because you're not you didn't switch to Android. But if you're switched here, just go to Build Settings back here, right?
Mhm.
Player Settings. Once you have Android selected, and then I want you to open. So this is basically your final export settings over here when you do Player Settings.
Okay.
So what we want here actually is we want to go to Other Settings right here,
Yep.
and Virtual Reality Supported. You see that? So you want to check that on.
Yeah. Got it.
And then in there it should say Virtual Reality SDKs list as empty. So you plus and Cardboard.
Okay.
And for you, it would show the same thing if you switch to iOS. You'd be able to put Cardboard in here. Yeah. Then the other thing, just real quick, so we don't have to do this later. Package name right here, which is also important. So this is the name of the package that you launch if you launch on the App Store or something like that, or when you install on the phone. That's the bundle identifier. So it's usually com.company.product name. So
Okay.
I could do like AnyWorld, and then like VR Bootcamp, something like that.
Okay.
And then if you have versions here, so when you release, you can increment the versions, and then it will know if there's an updated version. Like the phone will tell you, oh, this is a more recent version. Do you want to update the app? If you like reinstall it or something.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that way it doesn't like clone. Like if you keep recloning the same app, it doesn't just make 5 of the same app. It'll overwrite with the same identifier, basically.
Okay.
But if you change the identifier here, it basically becomes another app on the phone.
Okay.
So yeah, you have to set this. It's just something com.something.something. And that way it'll allow you to export. And then the last thing for Android here, minimum API level. You don't have to do any of this for iOS. Android KitKat, Android 4.4 is the minimum required now for the newest Cardboard.
Okay.
It would tell you if you export it without. It will say minimum API level too low, 4.4 is recommended or whatever.
Okay.
But we're just doing it right now before it asks us that. Yeah, and other than that, here you can do other cool things, like you can change the icon of your app, but we'll do that later.
Okay.
Yeah, so we pretty much have our app kind of configured for all that stuff. Now, what we're gonna do is, if I press play here, and if you press play, you should see the same thing. You should see just kind of like a look from where your player is. And if you hold Alt, again, you're doing this. Didn't I do a sky cap here? Weird, right?
Yeah, you
Did a what?
do.
The
Sky cap.
oh, it is there. It just
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So here's what you have to do, right? So sometimes this GVR viewer, what it does is you actually have to, let me just see where this is. Yeah, so here's what you do, right? So click on the first person character, which should be your camera, basically. So click there, and then you should see up here in component, at the bottom, Google VR. So you see that? And what we want to do is we want to update stereo cameras. So you see that?
Sorry.
So click your camera,
Yep.
the one with the post processing. Go to component, and then Google VR, update stereo cameras. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because, watch, if I press play right now, you'll notice that the Google VR does not have our post processing effects,
Oh, I see.
which we dearly want. So what I'm actually going to do is, the reason why it does that is because on play, Google VR, if you notice, it creates two cameras, one for the left eye and one for the right eye. So the idea is that basically the script is no longer applied on the eyes itself. It's applied on the top level thing. So that's why it's not showing up. So what we have to do is in the editor, we have to just generate those before on play. Basically, you see when I click play, you see how this becomes two things in here? Right? So
Yeah.
this is what you actually want to put the post script on, right? But you can't do that in the editor because it's not there, you see? So to create that, to pre-create it basically, that's how you do it. So you click component, Google VR, update stereo cameras.
Do you have to do that every
I don't
every
have
time you hit play, or?
So if you click
I
the
can't choose, like it's straight.
that might be because
Right.
of the cardboard thing. Yeah, you click that. Yeah, on that, on the inside. Yep, there it is. Yeah, so click that, and then you should get the left and the right eye. Then I want you to take from the first person character, the level above, take this post processing behavior script. Just right click it, copy component, and then you can remove it from here. Actually, like you don't need it in the first person character here anymore. You're gonna be so click. So real slow, just right here, same thing. We're looking at the same thing. Just click that. Right here, I had this post-processing effect, right? You remember what that is, right? We were doing the effects, right? So we're getting rid of that effect from the top level camera because we're putting it on the individual eyes. You get it? So then now you go and you click on the left or the right, and you just right-click and paste that post-processing effect.
Oh, okay. We copy.
You're basically copying it off what was originally the camera, and now you're putting it on the individual eye. So I just put it on the left now, and you'll notice, see my left eye, see it's got like the effects, whereas the right eye doesn't. You get it?
Oh, I see.
You get it? So you have to do that. So yeah,
Paste.
you right click on some component, and then there should say paste. Like if you have it selected, you see this?
Okay,
Yeah, paste component is new. So now you might notice a few differences. So we have, you see this ambient occlusion stuff gets a little messed up like this. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to get rid of that effect and a few other ones. So because we're doing this for mobile and we want to maximize our performance.
Wait, I have a question. So
Sure.
should I be as I navigate in the scene? Should my game so nothing happens when I move around?
What do you mean nothing happens?
See down there, it's just.
Oh yeah, that's normal because you wanna in there you want to hold Alt in your game view, and that simulates the look.
Oh,
See that?
gotcha, okay.
Yeah, Alt. That's how the Google VR package works.
I see.
Now you see it has some issues. For example, like with the post. The post is very new right now, so they haven't yet done it right with some of the effects, like for the split eye, for example. So then I just want you to, and we're probably gonna have to remove some of these anyway because it's gonna impact our performance. So if you just double click on my post or whatever your
How
post,
do you exit play?
just unpress play.
My
Okay.
mouse disappeared.
Alt tab, then try to command tab to switch windows or something. If you lose the mouse, just try yeah, and then you get. I think it's it locked it in. So try pressing escape. That usually works.
Okay.
Yeah, if the mouse gets locked in to the game view and it disappears,
Uh-huh.
it does that because the first person script just hides the mouse. So usually the first person control, you don't want to see the mouse when you're doing the free look. So that's why I did that. Yeah, if you ever get that, just escape. Yeah, so we want to just remove a few of these. So we want to remove ambient occlusion. So you want to click on over here. It's your post-processing config file. It should be right. It should look like that. It should be right there in your assets at the top level. In there is where, remember where we did all these settings.
I think I moved it somewhere. Well,
So if you ever have any doubt, you could click on the camera, and then right there it should be in the post-processing behavior script.
yeah.
It should be linked there anyway. So you can double-click that to get to it too.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So try this,
Oh,
right?
because I did that in game mode. All right, hold on. I gotta read.
Oh yeah, that's the trick. Yeah, remember why we made the in play mode look
Yeah.
green? That's
Yeah.
the warning.
All right, sorry. Then. Oh yeah, I moved that to scripts.
Yeah, so just remove ambient occlusion, and the reason is you see while it's pressing play, you see that it doesn't show up right. You see that it doesn't look right. The shadows aren't where they're supposed to be
Yeah.
because of the double eye. So just get rid of that effect. We don't want that one.
And if I just do it there,
Yep.
I
So
don't need to go to each camera.
nope. So that's the beauty of the config file. So anything that uses these config files, you can just go into the config file and edit that, and everything else just gets updated.
Yeah.
So get rid of ambient occlusion. Anti-aliasing, very important for VR because it looks very jaggy unless you have this. So this we could leave, but maybe instead of extreme quality, you can just do default or performance. We'll see when we test on the phone what works. Very important for VR. Things need to run smooth. Otherwise, you could get very dizzy, and that's what really differentiates like a good VR app from a terrible one. In my opinion, I've seen very low performing ones, get published by all sorts of people, and it makes you dizzy. You don't want to wear it for more than 5 seconds. It has to run 60 FPS.
So you don't want extreme performance in that?
You could. I mean, it might not actually make that much of a performance difference. We want to kind of balance quality and performance with anti-aliasing because this is an important effect.
Okay.
Without it, things don't look so great. So then we're gonna go down. Bloom is a great effect. We're gonna keep that on. I have no problem with bloom. The one that we want to get rid of is chromatic aberration. So we want to get rid of that one. It's gonna make it just really blurry and ugly. The one where it just pulls it like that to the side. So we want to get rid of that, and that should be it for our initial setup here of our effects. Now you might notice if you look up that the sky cap is not visible. The reason why that happens is because there's this thing. If you click on a camera, and now just make sure you get out of play mode. So when you click a camera, like the left or the right eye, if you just look at over here in the camera settings, you see where it says clipping planes? It says near and far when you click one of the cameras.
Mhm.
So clipping planes, what that basically means is the distance to which the camera keeps drawing objects. So right now the near clipping is 0.3, which is fine. That's as close as something can get before it just gets cut off in the view. And the far, it's very low. Google VR does that by default. If you look up here, if you click this, cap, it's very far up. It's like, 2,000 in Y. So your clipping plane should be more than that. So in the far, you want to put something like 3,000.
So it doesn't clip mine. I mean,
If you look up, you might not see the sky cap. At least for mine, that's what it looked like from the GVR, not from the scene.
oh, okay.
So find the scene. Yeah, look. If I just did it on the left eye, and then look, I'm gonna look up. Wait, actually, it's still
Oh, I
not.
got you. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Wait. It's still not showing up.
Oh,
Weird. Even more.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, I don't know why it It's a little bit weird. Still not drawing.
what about the first person character?
Say it again.
What about the first person character? Do you do that too for free level too?
It doesn't seem to be fixing it for me. I'm not sure why that hasn't changed. Yeah, that's a little weird. But we're just gonna have to come back to that. I'm not sure why it's doing that.
Seems working.
Yeah, for me it's just not showing up. But let's just ignore that for now. But yeah, just make sure your clipping planes are high. In VR, you'll especially notice it if something is really far away and it just kind of doesn't want to draw it. You turn your head, it just looks a little weird. Yeah, and then oh yeah, I think I found it. The trick was keep stereo updated. Like when you click the first person character, you see the little check mark? Keep stereo updated.
What's that under?
Right there.
Stereo controller.
Yeah. Now it shows up. Yep. So got it. All right, cool. Figured that out. All right, so we have our basics here. Now what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna show you how we can actually, instead of writing an entire physics script for a player, it's very important that the player is a rigid body, but he's kinematic, kind of like how we explained. So player is not affected by physics, but he affects other physics.
Right.
So if he runs into a wall, it'll stop him based on the collider. And as well, another important thing is sliding along walls. So if you're kind of like coming at an angle with a wall, physics will allow you to just kind of slide along the wall, even though it won't just stop you in your tracks. And back in the day, that was like some very complicated code to do sliding along walls and stuff, but nowadays it's very simple. But it's just something that you would notice if you try to code it yourself and you just reach some collider and you just stop the player. It's very unnatural. People expect to just kind of slide over things unless they're really like going into it. So this first person character, you'll notice if you press play, it's made to work with well, actually turned mine off, but it's made to work with just the walking, but I want to see why it's not doing that for me. Weird. Oh, I see the problem. You might have this. I don't know why mine is. But if you click FPS controller, mine is static for some reason. Make sure that's not static. So just click your FPS controller, your first person controller.
Change children.
Yes. So static we're only going to use for things that don't move. So that's important for things like when you're baking lighting and when you're baking like the level design for the AIs. Everything has to be static that you want them to.
Okay.
But you know, besides just a few things. And then now the player should be movable. So you'll see it should work with these keys. Huh. Very strange. Yours is working, but for ours, it doesn't seem to be. So what we're gonna do is,
What's not working?
so can yours walk with the WASD keys?
Oh.
Because mine can't.
Do I have to hold Alt down?
Well, Alt is just to look around. It seems that for some reason when the GVR camera takes over,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah, no. Yeah.
right? Yeah. That's okay. It seems to be something that it's just taking over from there. But so you can see that this, if you double click the first person controller script, you can see it's pretty complex. It has a bunch of the things here. So what we want to look for.
How'd you get to that?
So I just click FPS controller and the first person controller script. You see that if you double click it. So this it's good because it has already the jump stuff kind of made. I'm just trying to find where the exact spot is for.
The screen doesn't work. So it's open and close.
How do you move in VR?
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do it on touch. That's how we're gonna do it. So let me just see if we can do a quick. So you know, just to not make this complicated, and I guess I could explain how this would work. So I want you to just click the FPS controller here, right? And the first person controller script, right click it and just remove it. It's too complicated.
Yep. Okay.
So we're going to create something just much simpler
Do I need
and easier to understand.
Do I need to get rid of it?
Yep. So you click over here, FPS controller, and just, it should be right there. I removed it already, but just remove the first person controller script.
Mine's working.
I know, but we wanna switch from the WASD and we're gonna do it on mouse. So once you have that removed, we're gonna create our player script. So we're gonna right click in our project, create C# script, and we're gonna call it player. Yep. Okay, once you have that, double click it to open it. Yeah, so the first thing that we want here is we just kind of want to, remember how you do get component to get the rigid body? So instead of having to do get component every time you want to modify the rigid body, what we're going to do is getting the component should only be really done once on start. And we want to assign it to just a variable that we're going to use. So we want the rigid body. So we're going to do a type of rigid body. Just type it like that, rigid body. And it's not a public because we don't need it to be accessible outside this script. So up here, yeah, I'll make it a little bigger. So up here, just rigid body, and then just call it something like rigid or something like that. Whatever, you know, is short for you. Like that. And then in start, we're going to do rigid equals to get component rigid body, like that, and then open parentheses, close, semicolon. So now, whenever I want to get do something with the rigid body, I can just refer to this rigid instead of having to do this whole get component stuff.
Cool.
So once we've gotten the rigid body component, then we could work with it. It's just much easier and shorter code if you just type rigid dot velocity instead of get component rigid body dot velocity and whatnot. But you'll see in a moment what we're doing with this. Okay, once you have that, then what you're gonna do over here, so on update, what we wanna do, oh, and right before we do that actually, right under rigid body, rigid, we're gonna do a public float speed. So that's just gonna be like our player speed. And a public float speed equals to, let's say something like 5F. That's gonna be our like default value for the speed. So let's just do that. And then, because it's a public, you'll be able to change it from the scene and,
Okay, wait, 1 second.
get the speed for your player that you want. Okay,
Wait.
you got it?
Rigid equals component. Oh, I see. Got it.
Yeah, so once we have that, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do an if statement here in update. So we're gonna do if input, remember this, get mouse button. Now instead of get mouse button down, we want to just get mouse button. What that does is, as long as it's held, this if statement is true. So we want to be able to hold the screen to walk forward. So we don't want the get mouse button down, because that only fires once when you clicked it. We want just get mouse button, and open parentheses 0, and that's like your left mouse button or on phone will be automatically detected to be a touch on the screen.
Okay.
And then once you have it like that, open a curly bracket, make a few lines, close the curly bracket, and then this is where we're going to write our movement script. Okay, so in here, now it should work just like this, right? So here's what we do. So we do rigid dot velocity is equal to, and now this is just a quick way, oh, I wrote this wrong. Yeah, so rigid dot velocity is equal to, so it's expecting, velocity is always a vector 3. So it's x, it has a speed in x, y, and z. Now what we want is, we want the direction that the camera is facing, that will be the velocity that we want to go into. So if you're looking that way and you're holding, then you should be going in the direction that the camera is looking. So the way that you get the direction that an object's forward is, so usually the forward is the Z. So if you click, but in this instance it'll be, yeah, if I click, it's on global. Yeah, but see, usually it's the Z, like the blue one, that's usually the forward. So whatever object, see if I click this object's forward is in that direction technically. So here we see that our camera is already set up to go forward, right here. So we want to get this vector. Like one of the main things about vectors, right? Not only are vectors for position, like how we had, like we had vectors, like 2 and 1, x and y, whatever, and the same thing in z. Vectors are also for directions. So if a vector has a length of, so this is x, y, and z, right? So if a vector is 0, 1, 0, which direction is that going to go in? Up, right? So that's kind of how it works. Now if these are both 1, then what this is actually going to do, it's going to go in the x and in the y, and it's going to go diagonal.
Okay.
So that's kind of how vectors work, basically.
And what values can you have there?
So you can have any values that you want. The most important thing is that they're normalized in the end. what normalized means is like if this is like something like 500 and this is like 1, it will still cap it off to like I guess what I mean to say is like the way the vector math works, it's like same as how we have here for position, but when a vector can have a length. So like if something is in the y it's 1 and it's 0 in all the other ones, then it's the length of that vector is upward, basically. You can picture it almost like an arrow. It's just kind of like it's almost like a direction. It's not a position. So a vector 3 could be a position, but it could also be a direction as well, if you think about it that way.
So that seems to me that would either be on or off. Like a direction's either, you're either going that direction or you're not.
Yes, but we're checking that with the click, right? But basically what we want, so we want to get our camera's forward vector. And it's a vector 3, and we honestly don't need to know the specific numbers because a camera can rotate in many different angles when you're controlling it. So again, a quick way to get a certain object's forward direction. Now, you could just refer the object, and then, transform of the object, and you don't have to type this, and do forward. So anything dot forward is that object's forward. See, it says the blue axis of the transform in world space.
Yeah.
So instead of this, what we want to do, so we're going to use a quick shortcut for the main camera. Now, you notice how if I click up here, and usually when you start your Unity project, one camera will be tagged here as main camera. So that's kind of like the main camera object. A quick way to just refer to that in script without having to link it here in public and all that, you could just do capital camera like that, camera.main, and that gets that main camera. And then we want that camera.mains dot transform. So we want the actual transform component of that camera, which has a forward vector. So then you click transform dot forward. Now, another interesting thing in Unity is that when you multiply a vector by something like dot times speed, so in this instance it will be times 5, it actually multiplies the x and the y and the z at the same time. So it does a scalar multiplication. So if you multiply this by 5, it will give you the coefficient of each one, and it'll be like, if this was 0, 1, 0, this would be 0, 5, 0. So now you've given that vector length, you made it longer, faster, technically, in that direction.
Alright.
Yeah. So yeah, if you just multiply it by a float number, like the speed like that, it automatically knows to multiply both the x, y, and the z by that speed. Yeah, and then the only problem that I think we will have here is that he won't stop when we want him to. But let me just test that real quick. So I'm just going to press play. I'm going to go in here. Oh, come on. Sometimes it does the...
Did you apply this group onto?
You're right. Good catch. So all we're going to do is grab our player script and put it on the FPS controller. And let me see if that works. Sometimes it ignores the mouse click. It's still ignoring the mouse click. And that's a Google VR thing. It's pretty annoying sometimes. But let me just find where that is.